Weekend number 1 of conference play is officially in the books. We've got sweeps to discuss. Statements were made. Tons to get into here on the Windup, SEC Unfiltered bi-weekly college baseball show. Hello, everyone. Once again, I'm Chris Phillips. He is Harrison Fant joining me. Really excited to talk to each and every single one of you. We have got tons to discuss, tons to react to, and also a jam-packed midweek slate that we'll break down and preview and predict later in the show as well. But guys, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $200 in bonus bets today. Once again, this is the Windup, SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly college baseball show. Welcome in, everyone. I am Chris Phillips. Joining me, as he always does, my good friend, Harrison Fant. Harrison, we got tons to discuss, tons to react to. Weekend number 1 of conference play in the SEC on the diamond is officially in the books. And I got to first start with you, Harrison, with this. I got to give you a little bit of crap here because going into the weekend, you talked about how I'll never call a sweep in college baseball. I'm not going to be that bold. Half of the series ended up in sweeps, hence the thumbnail if you see it on YouTube and social media. Merry Sweetmas. Sweeps were the theme of the weekend, my friend. Either way, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Excited to chop it up with you once again.
Yeah, I mean, sweeps are just not expecting the SEC with how deep the league is and how talented each team is across the board, let alone playing on the road and sweeping on the road, Chris. I think that's even more impressive than sweeping at home, obviously. But I don't think anyone predicted this many sweeps, let alone, I think, some more lopsided games. But it was SEC play nonetheless. We're stoked to be here. We're so glad SEC play is here. Just the hype of the games, the talent head-to-head, and the gauntlet that the SEC is. I know I'm stoked for it. You're stoked for it. I mean, it's the best conference in college baseball, and it's the road to Omaha. So I'm happy to be here talking about it for sure.
Yeah, it was a wild weekend, Harrison. I also, before we get into everything, because we got a lot to discuss, we're going to talk all 8 series. We're going to talk the midweek, of course, as we always do here on a Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day, by the way. I've got my green on. I see that you don't, but you are rocking the SECU, so I will forgive you.
I don't.
But,
I do have Irish heritage though. And,
you do, yeah. So you're beating me there, yeah. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day to the Fant heritage. Yeah, you were in Ireland last football season, right? For the
first game of the college
game.
football season, Georgia Tech versus Florida State. Got to watch that in person. Got to tour around Ireland for a week before and see some family heritage and the Fant Castle there in Ireland too. So that was really fun and just a memory I'll have forever and super cool experience and an unbelievable trip. And then obviously getting the win over what was then a ranked Florida State team was awesome. But I mean, it was a cool game for sure. Just a cool experience to have that with my family and some of our friends.
Yeah, I know. I saw all the pictures and everything on social media. It looked like you guys had a great time. I also want to mention this, Harrison, we get going. Obviously, again, those that are tuned in, appreciate you guys, whether you're live, you're on podcast. Again, you rock with us not just because of the baseball side of things, and we obviously love that, but the human element as well, who we are as people. Want to express our condolences and ask you guys to send prayers to Harrison and his family. Their family dog passed away this morning, Monday, March 17th. So shout out to Chaplain, RIP. If anything, Harrison, just want to send condolences to you guys and a good boy, obviously. It's always hard, but I just wanted to bring that up. Everybody send your thoughts, your prayers, and Harrison, we're with you, brother. I know it's tough.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Chris. I mean, he's a rescue dog. We rescued him at like 3 or 4 years old, chocolate lab mix, a little bit of pit in him. But we gave him a good life for sure. He definitely got a lot of love, a lot of treats, a lot of, comfortable living and got to explore in the backyard and, really enjoyed the time we had with him and he lived a good life. So it was good.
Shout out to Chaplain. This show's for you. Again, sending your thoughts, prayers.
I mean, it's tough because, dogs are, man's best friend, but it's just part of life. But,
Yeah, no, I know it's tough, man. But again, we're here for you. I appreciate you, Harrison. Obviously, you're here. Let's talk some baseball. Obviously, we'll get the mind off it.
Thanks.
It's what Chaplain would want us to do. Again, we're going to dive into all these series. Conference weekend number 1, like I mentioned, Harrison, is officially in the books. And we've got to start with what going into the weekend was the series of the weekend. We thought it was going to be a really competitive, down to the wire, maybe it comes down to the third game, rubber match. Yeah, the Tennessee Volunteers out of the plans. They sweep a top 10 Florida team at the time, a top 10 Florida team. Tennessee now officially ranked number 1 in the new poll. Harrison, I thought Friday night lived up to expectations in this one at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. You had the two Liams going at it. Neither guy makes it out of the 5th inning. The pitch counts got ran up. We talked about this on Friday Night Spikes. I thought both lineups did a really good job of putting together, just really tough at bats, extending at bats, again, getting those pinch counts really high and getting to the bullpens, which is what you have to do against elite starters. But both those guys, I think, watching them, I was like, those are two of the top aces, and not just the SEC, but the entire country. Liam Peterson for Florida and Liam Doyle for Tennessee, of course. So a game that could have gone either way. Obviously, Tennessee on their home field, they find a way to scratch and claw and win. What we didn't see coming was a run rule victory by Tennessee in game 2, 10-0. They have that, 9-run 7th inning where things just kind of, the wheels just sort of fell off for the Gators, and it just kind of shows Tennessee's offense in the blink of an eye can really hurt you and make you pay, and they win that one via run rule. And then on Sunday, yet again, Harrison, it looks like Florida's going to salvage a game, and Tennessee is just, they are inevitable. I mean, it's at some point they're going to get you. The lineup is so deep, so good. I was incredibly impressed with the pitching as well. Marcus Phillips was fantastic Saturday. Nate Snead is arguably the best closer in the SEC. And again, Harrison, finally, at long last, Tennessee is number 1 in the new polls. Let's talk about the Vols first, focus on them. Your thoughts, your takeaways. I mean, God, there were a lot of loud weekends in the conference this week, and this one was as loud as any, man, because Tennessee is, God, they're just as good as they were last year, and it's scary to say they might be even better.
Tennessee had the loudest week in the SEC and across the country, I think, for sure. And it was predicated on, you can't even say just the pitching staff of the bats, because it was that, it was all of it. It was the defense. It was everyone that was involved, it felt like. And, Tennessee's off to their best start in program history. They're 20-0, and it's the best start by a defending national champion team, I think, ever. And we talk about, maybe this team's better than the national championship team. And it's an unbelievable statement to say, but it's possible, and it's really looking like that right now. But like I said, I think it's the depth of consistency. Not just that they can do it, but they can do it at such a high level on both sides of the ball with whoever is out there, Chris. It doesn't matter if it's Liam Doyle or if it's, a young freshman that's pitching. It could be anyone. And obviously we know how deep the lineup is too. And you got Levi Clark, who's been unbelievably good and probably, I think, the best freshman in the country. Absolutely. I mean, top 3, if not best. But you have anyone that pitches. I mean, Tegan Kuhn, so I think for Tennessee is going to be one of the names that people are starting to get more familiar with and are going to know, because he is so unbelievably good on the mound. He's going to be a core piece of, I think, Tennessee throughout his career. And then you got a bunch of guys that come in behind him. And it feels like everyone they roll out, Chris, throws 95 and has a hammer of a breaking ball. I mean, it's just kind of part of, I guess, getting recruited to Tennessee to be able to do that. And then you got Nate Snead in the back end. I mean, having him in a kind of role, and they didn't even use AJ Russell. I mean, you didn't even need to. I mean, we were wondering if he was going to pitch Sunday, maybe. I mean, Marcus Phillips, you didn't need the bullpen then, because he goes CG in 7 innings because they run rule him via a 9 spot against Florida. And we talked, Chris, about how it was a shutout too. It was a 10-0 shutout. We talked about how, I think, preseason and in the first couple of weeks, about how Florida was never going to be out of a game, no matter how much they were down. And Tennessee said, all right, watch this. And they did it in game 2. And then, I mean, game 3, obviously game 1 was pretty close and a really competitive game, but they do it in game 2. And then game 3, just they kind of run away with it after the 4th inning when Florida put up a 4 spot. But I was really impressed with just every facet of how Tennessee played. And I have been this season and just been so high on them. But I was more surprised by just I don't want to say lack of offense, but the lack of, elite offense that we've seen from Florida. And we thought that, they're never out of the game. I mean, just with how wide it felt game 2 was, especially towards the end, it just felt like they weren't really getting it done. I mean, Tennessee out-hit them, obviously, but it was just interesting to see, especially game 3. And then you put the 4 spot up, you take one on the road. We talk about how important it is. Don't get swept on the road, win this series at home. Sunday, I think, was super crucial for them going in. I think that was the mindset too. And you put a 4 spot up and you're 4-2. And then it just wheels kind of fall off as Tennessee just chips away, adds. And just, it's like, God, how do you fight out of a hole against this team that just has their whole bullpen available because they didn't need anyone in game 2, and they really only needed one guy in game 1. I mean, it was just really impressive to see. And, Florida threw their best guys. They threw Jake Clemente, Billy Barlow, and Alex Phillips, and they all got hit around. And, Billy Barlow struggled with the walks. He had 4 walks in just under 3 innings. So it was really interesting, but I think it was a big kind of, I don't want to say reality check, but moment of humility for Florida. And I say that because they are still super talented and going to, I think, have an incredible season. But they just got smacked in the face by Tennessee. And if you're going to get smacked in the face by anyone, it might as well be Tennessee or LSU, one of the 2 top teams in the country. And you're doing it on the road, right? It didn't happen at home. But you get a reality check early. You know a lot about yourself and about, where we stand up against the top 5, the best teams in the country, the best team in the country in Tennessee. And, Kevin O'Sullivan, he's been to Omaha more times than he hasn't. So if anyone's going to, write the kind of rest of the season off for Florida, I think that's just dumb. And anyone that knows baseball, knows Florida Gator baseball under Kevin O'Sullivan, knows that he's going to fix things and improve guys, and they're going to be a force to reckon with in the SEC still, Chris.
Yeah, a couple things, Harrison, from what you said. Number one, I'm really glad when you talked about Tennessee, you brought up the defense. They made some web gems this weekend that Jay Abernathy, the catch in left field. Again,
Yep.
Tennessee outfielders, they love running into walls and making great catches. Jay Abernathy has one that looks like he learned that directly from Hunter Inslee. Makes the catch, smashes in the wall. Obviously, it's a great play.
And he's a young buck, too.
Yeah, freshman. Yeah, true freshman. Now, another great freshman. And again, you and I got the question on Friday Night Spikes, which freshman class would you take, Tennessee's or LSU's? And we could spend the entire show talking about that debate, but it's worth the debate. Like, they're both, there's some great freshmen in this league. Tennessee and LSU seem to have a lot of them. But the defense was incredible. We think about Tennessee. We think about the hitting, most of all, but the pitching and the defense, I mean, is one of the biggest things that makes them so elite under Tony Vitello. And the defense really showed off, I thought, all weekend long. You mentioned, Harrison, I agree. That game Sunday was big for Florida. Like you said, it's the sweeps. We talked about it going in. It's the sweeps that throw your season one way or another, positively or negatively. And, listen, if you'd have lost 2 or 3 at Lindsey Nelson, you're like, hey, there's no shame in that, right? You went into the defending national champion's house, and they're a buzzsaw right now. They're maybe better than last year, and you lost 2 or 3. Hey, it is what it is. You're disappointed, but you keep it moving. To lose all 3 is tough. That's a really, and it's obviously it's one weekend, really tough way to start conference play though. Looking ahead, Harrison, Florida's got Georgia coming to town next weekend, or this upcoming weekend, I should say. You got to bounce back. Again, we'll talk more about that Thursday, of course, and predict it. But if you're Florida, you got to bounce back. You have to on your home field. The other thing, Harrison, for them, watching them again, I'm not like down on Florida after this weekend because I just genuinely think they ran into a buzzsaw. Like Tennessee at home, right? And Tennessee, just the way they're playing, they're kind of like, not to switch the convo to basketball, but they're kind of like what Florida is in basketball right now. Like, nobody's playing better than them. Like, that's the team you don't want to see. That's what Tennessee is on the diamond right now. You don't want to see them on the schedule, period. You definitely don't want to have to go to their place, give them the last at bats. So I'm not down on Florida. The one thing, Florida cannot sustain any more injuries. Like, I think you saw bullpen depth was something I was a little bit nervous about coming in. I like McNeely. I like Philpott. Hey, Aiden King on Saturday is a huge bright spot for Florida. Like, he mowed down one of the best lineups, if not the best lineup in college baseball. Like, that kid is legit, but you lose Menendez. Like, they're kind of having to find themselves in the bullpen a little bit. Like you mentioned, Harrison, you saw it with, they're going to start pitching Billy Barlow on the weekends. There's going to be some freshman arms
have
to step
right
up.
Now.
Yeah, there's going to be some guys that have to step up. So bullpen depth. And I think to your point, man, like the lineup, certainly, like there's some things to figure out, but I give more of the credit to Tennessee. And like, again, they're the number 1 team in the country, Harrison. You and I have touted for weeks. They deserve to be, I guess better late than never by some others out there. They've been number 1 and I think both you and I are power rankings for the past few weeks. Nobody's playing better baseball than Tennessee right now. And
Tennessee won game 1. It was the first game of the season they didn't have a home run.
Yeah. They can beat you. Here's the thing. The best teams, Harrison, can beat you in the most number of ways.
Yeah. And that's what Florida out-hit them in game 1. It's not like it's not a takeaway from, like you said, what Florida's offense is. It's just about how good.
Yeah.
Tennessee's pitching is, and obviously it was Liam Doyle and Marcus Phillips. Marcus Phillips, I think, is going to be a first-round talent for sure. The stuff is there. It's just so good. I think he's getting better. I mean, he looks so comfortable in the role too. I mean, scattered in 5 hits, but it was just more of a tip of the cap to Tennessee's pitching than Florida's hitting because, I mean, you out hit him in game 1. You hit 5 hits in each of game 2 and game 3. It wasn't – I mean, that's not bad. It's just the shutout looks worse in game 2 because if you look at just the box, it's like, oh, wow, they lost 10-0. Like, wow, Tennessee dominated. It's like, no, it was just 1 inning in the 7th when it absolutely blew up into smoke and flames for Florida.
Yeah, and I'm definitely, Harrison, I know you're not either, but I'm not hitting the panic button on Florida. If it becomes a trend – then, like this weekend against Georgia at home, if it becomes a trend, I think maybe you start to worry. But, again,
it's different if it was at home like Mississippi State.
Yeah, a lot of teams are going to go into Knoxville and not have very fun weekends, I feel. So, tip your cap to Tennessee. It's just – and they got to – hey, looking ahead, Harrison, Tennessee, they got a big series. They go to Tuscaloosa this weekend. We'll talk more about Bama here in a second, but – yeah, it's only going to get more fun as we continue. But the Vols, 3-0 in SEC play, number 1 in the country via every poll, and Florida left picking up the pieces, leaving Knoxville. We'll see how
Chris, speaking of Tennessee, to wrap up Tennessee, I think we should throw this up there. Maybe Tennessee's thinking about joining the NL East. SEC doesn't present enough competition for us anymore.
Hey, be careful now. The baseball gods will humble you. Be very careful.
But that's actually really funny.
Yeah, and by the way, I am more than happy to own it, Harrison. I got a lot of comments over the weekend. Yes, I did pick Florida to take 2 out of 3. It was a bad pick. It was a swing and a miss. It is what it is. I thought
can't win them all.
Can't win them all. I thought maybe in the middle of that game Friday I was onto something, but the Vols, like Thanos said, I am inevitable. The Vols are Thanos right now. Tony Vitello is Thanos, and each of his hitters, it's like
all the
Gavin Kylan, Fisher, then you throw in Snead in there, Doyle, Mark. Those are all his stones, Infinity Stones.
Yep.
Yeah. Tony Vitello is Thanos right now. That's for sure. Harrison, let's go to a really other notable sweep. You mentioned Tennessee, the biggest winners of the weekend. This was a loud weekend too, though. We talked about it. College Station, Texas. Alabama goes into College Station, into Bluebell, and sweeps the Texas A&M Aggies. Here's the thing, Harrison. I know a lot of the conversation is going to be on A&M, and we'll talk about them in a second. But can we stop and give some credit to Alabama? I mean,
yes.
This is a team, and people are going to say it's early. Guys, by the way, Harrison, I hate to ruin your Monday and anybody else out there. Harrison, do you realize we're like 3 games away from the literal halfway point of the season? It's not early anymore.
It doesn't feel like that because of non-conference. So.
It doesn't, but we are. We are. I mean, we're about to hit the halfway point of the season.
Of the regular season.
This Alabama team is an Omaha contender. I think it's time to say that.
Absolutely.
They're a contender for Omaha. I'm not saying it's a lock. Bama fans, I'm not saying go ahead and book your hotels and flights just yet, but they are a realistic Omaha contender. Like this is a real club here for Alabama. You look at what the starting pitching did, Harrison. I mean, I love Zane Adams, Riley Quick, those 2 guys. Heck of a 1-2 punch, one of the best in the SEC, I think. Will Hodo is just Mr. Clutch. Heck, Alabama was clutch all weekend. They win back-to-back games Friday, Saturday in the top of the 9th inning. In a big home run to win those games. And then Sunday, Sundays, Harrison, we'll talk about it in a second, but Sundays where things can get squirrely on the pitching side, they pitch a shutout. I mean, we'll see. Hey, they got a big test, like we just mentioned, with Tennessee coming to town. But, man, this Bama club's for real, man. Like this Bama club, I love everything about them right now. Rob Vaughn, what he's doing. So much of the combo, Harrison, is going to be made about Texas A&M, but you've got to give credit to Alabama and what they've done at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, Rob Vaughn is a phenomenal coach, and what he's been able to do at Alabama in such a short period of time, it feels like is nothing less than very impressive to do in the SEC. And I'm not saying Alabama was like a Missouri program or whatnot, bottom of the barrel SEC, but there's a lot of talent that Alabama can draw in and can recruit, and he's been able to do that. And guys that like Justin LeBron are kind of under recruited, honestly. That's the undersized and just the talent that he's been in. The unbelievable season. I think he's probably the best hitter in college baseball right now, arguably for sure. And to go on the road into a hostile environment, whether A&M's the number 1 team in the nation or ranked or not, is a hostile environment. And to do that and be as clutch as they were and have back-to-back games when they took the lead and won the game in the top of the 9th. I mean, on the pitching change, we talked about that on Friday Night Spice, and then back-to-back home runs. I mean, talk about a dagger an absolute dagger to do that on the road. And the bottom of the ninth, how that kind of ended up with A&M, getting two guys on it after a hit by pitch and a walk, and then getting doubled up on a liner. It's just like, gosh, they can't catch a break. But I mean, you have to tip your cap to Alabama to do this on the road. And I mean, it was really impressive to see me, because Ryan Prager didn't have his best stuff, right? He had 4 earned in 7 innings. I mean, the walks were there a little bit. That didn't help him. I mean, we talk about how he's not going to overly power you like Liam Doyle, Marcus Phillips. He's kind of like a Tom Glavine-esque pitcher. And A&M really, I felt like, had a quality, aggressive ABs. And, Zane Adams scattering 7 hits in just over 5 innings and giving his guys a chance, limiting walks, and then the bullpen coming behind him and closing it down. And, it was a really kind of team effort. And to do that on the road at A&M, just being so clutch. I mean, and then Saturday, talk about Riley Quick. I mean, I was really impressed with him. I wasn't down on him at all. I just wanted to see more from the starting pitching staff. And he had his, I think, career best outing, 6 Ks and no runs. He had a no-hitter through 3. I mean, like a deep, cut slider in the upper 80s, which was odd. That's why I think it was more of a cutter, because it was so fast. Really efficient. He expanded the zone with that. And, I thought Justin Lampkin, we have to give him credit. He painted the fastball really well. Slider was deep and really pitched well. I think obviously gave his team a chance, but just A&M just hung around and was just giving themselves opportunity after opportunity on the offensive side. I mean, Justin LeBron, his game, Jace Lavalette had a great catch running into a wall. I mean, talk about running the wall. He caught that one straight in the right center field wall. And then 2-out grand slam from Will Hodo in the 9th inning on the road, Chris. On the road.
And into the visiting bullpen. Into their bullpen.
1-0 fastball that was just a laser of a line drive, 170 mile an hour exit velocity. He turned and burned on it. I mean, I thought it was a quality pitch. I really did. He just turned and burned on it and beat him, and you tip your cap there. But talk about nailing the coffin there. And then, Sunday taking care of business. Bobby Alcott pitching his career best outing. I mean, 8 Ks in 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 walks, limited the walks. Obviously, Miles Patton pitched really well, and it hasn't been the starting pitching for A&M. It really hasn't. But like I said, it's just been a deep lineup from Alabama. I mean, you talk about Cade Snell. He had 2 doubles, a home run. He's an 18-game on-base streak. Coleman Mizell got 20-game on-base streak as well. That's to support Justin LeBron, making it so he's not a one-man band, right? And I mean, Alabama earned their first sweep of Texas A&M since 2021 in April. I mean, it was in College Station, and then they sweep Texas A&M, got the first conference opening sweep since 1973. 1973 is the last time they had a conference opening sweep. So, I mean, the tide is rolling high, Chris. The postseason legitimate Omaha talk is there for Alabama. You're going to have to go through the SEC gauntlet, and to do so, you're going to have to face Tennessee, which they do this upcoming weekend at home. We're going to talk about making a statement even more because of everyone how is down on Texas A&M. Make a statement against Tennessee, and you'll prove everyone who you truly are. And I think they can definitely compete with Tennessee. I don't know how they're going to, I'm excited to see it, because I just don't know how you keep up with Tennessee anyone, honestly. But they get them at home, which is huge too, Chris. But if they can go, not get swept, obviously, but they can take a series against Tennessee at home. They did it last year, Chris. Did it last year. I mean, this Alabama Crimson Tide team is no joke. They are very good. They've improved on the pitching side from what I was kind of worried about. And the bats have been there that are going to be there. Rob Vaughn is leading the Tide in the right direction, and that direction is towards Omaha.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding ignorant, Harrison, forgive me for not being as, up to speed with history, Alabama baseball history. I got to think this is one of the most highly anticipated series at the Joe in quite a long time. I mean, it's, to think about what Bama's done. Bama now sitting, what are they? They're top 15. I forget exactly when the polls came out this morning, where they were. I'm going to pick that up really quickly. But you got the number 1 team in the country in Tennessee now coming to your place. Alabama is ranked 12th. So, I mean, it's about as highly anticipated as I can recall Alabama baseball. The Joe is must-see TV this weekend. By the way, Harrison, series starts Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So when you and I, when we're breaking this thing down, it'll be game day for us, which will be really cool. Let's talk Texas A&M. And Harrison, I think you made a great point. The starting pitching, that's the least of the problems. They're giving them a chance in every single game. Harrison, it is Monday, March the 17th, and Texas A&M is unranked. From number 1 to unranked.
Unanimous number 1.
Unanimous across the board. That felt like the obvious national title pick.
And neither one of us picked them for the title or SEC regular season champs.
Number 1 to unranked, one SEC weekend. And Harrison, this is no longer, again, you can't write it off as it's early season. Dude, Texas A&M is 10-9 They are 0-3 in conference play. Harrison, the conversation is no longer, in my opinion, can this team bounce back and be what we thought they were going to be preseason and win a national title? Harrison, the conversation is this team going to make the postseason? Like, at this point, like, you're 20 games in, 19 games in. Like, this is no longer a small sample size. Like, this is a trend. And I know we got 9 more conference series to go, but again, it's only going to get more difficult. Like, there are no easy weekends. There's not going to be a layup weekend. Your layup weekends happen in the first month, and you didn't take advantage. So, there's obviously still talent on this roster. We know that. But I don't know what gives for them, man. Like, they need something good to happen. Granted, they win 2 out of 3 the previous weekend. Like, it's not like they haven't won any games, but, like, they need something good to happen to change something. But, I mean, Harrison, at what point do we stop and just say, whatever it is, whether it's Michael Early, it's some of the guys, Gavin Grahovic being out, some of the guys they lost from last year, like, this team just isn't what we thought it was. I don't know how else to put it. Like, they're just not. At least at this moment, they're not. And I think missing the postseason is a real conversation at this point.
If I had to sum it up in one sentence, it feels like the movie Space Jam, and they came and just took all their powers.
The Monstars sucked their
talent. The Monstars just came and took all their powers, and it's like, what is going on? You have some of the most elite talent in the SEC and country, and it just as a team can't figure it out. I mean, there's just flashes of it. It's like, there it is. And it's like, oh, there it goes. There it is. There it goes. Defensively, Jace Lavalette running the wall, make a huge catch, great at bats. And it's like, oh, frustrating at bats. And you have guys who's like, there's a really quality at bat and, putting together a lot of confident at bats. But then it's like, it's just like riding a roller coaster right now at A&M. And it really feels like the Monstars with Space Jam. It's what is the break even point, and what does, the season, what do you want to make out of it? Obviously, compared to the preseason, hype and everything, but as a team internally in the fan base, what does the rest of the season look like, and how do we fix that? Obviously in the clubhouse, there's conversation going on and just a lot of questions, and you need a lot of answers, and the sooner the better, because it's just kind of spiraling, and it's frustrating to watch, honestly.
Harrison, I'm going to say this, and if I provide bulletin board material and help the Aggies spark a turnaround, then so be it. But I seriously, at this point, have my doubts about Michael Early. I think it's showing why you don't just hire the hitting coach because all the team wants you to do so. A guy who's never been a head coach before, you don't hire that guy to lead what we still think is one of the most talented rosters in the country, and a team that felt like national title or bust coming in, that you felt like had a point to prove. Like, watching them in SEC play now, some of the decisions that are being made, like in the bullpen, and you say whatever you want. It's the right guy, wrong guy. Like, all I know is you make a pitching change and the guy gives up back-to-back homers on Friday night, you lose the game. I mean, I just, like, we got to hold somebody.
You don't bring in anyone. You bring in a really good reliever.
But you got to hold somebody accountable. Like, someone has to be held accountable. Like, and I think it comes back to Michael Early. I prove me wrong. Go prove me wrong. You got 9 conference series left. Go prove me wrong. But at this point, like, if you had to make me pick one way or another, you asked me the question simply, is Michael Early in over his head? I would say that he is. I've seen nothing to tell me otherwise at this point. Again, you got, 40 more games? Go out there and prove it, and everybody's doubting you. And, like, can you use that as fuel to the fire? But, dude, everybody was doubting you coming into the Bama series, and you got swept at home. So I just don't know what's going to change, man. Like, and I wonder how patient A&M is going to be with him. Like, is this Harrison, if they miss the postseason, call me crazy. I could see this being a one and done kind of thing. I could see Michael Early not lasting past this season. Like, because to me, if you take this team and you miss the postseason, that's a fireable offense in my mind. I don't think that's too bold. Like, I honestly think you're like, you know what? That's kind of proof all we need that you're a good dude. You're a good hitting coach. You're not a good head coach. I mean,
I think for me, it's people will talk about, he was the hitting coach last year. Like, what happened? Blah, 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 all this, like it's, a lot of the same guys, and he was a hitting guru, right? Like, your role as a hitting coach versus a head coach, I think are being underappreciated and under-evaluated in people's minds. You have to manage everything. Everything. Yes, you have a
Harrison,
pitching
you
coach.
have to manage NIL. You have to manage fundraising. Yeah, I mean, it's so much more than just managing your starting lineup.
Yeah, and I think that has to be thought about more and just understood more because it's like, well, hitting shouldn't change. He was a hitting coach. Like, there's so much more on his plate. And I'm not saying it's a one and done. I don't think it is. I'm not going to say he's the right or wrong guy. I think it was a good hire for sure. But I just don't know if A&M is going to give him the time to, figure it out. Like, we talk about how fast coaches get fired in college football. If you don't have 2 good seasons on a program that should, you get it's a short leash. And I hope he doesn't get a short leash because it sets a bad precedent. But I don't know what the A&M faithful is going to do.
I'll be honest with you, Harrison. We'll get off of this. We got a lot to talk about. I don't think for sure it was a good hire. I really don't. I'm sorry. Like I like Michael. I got nothing against Michael Early, obviously, but we got to call it as it is and be honest and truthful and fair. And you got the job because the players vouched for you. Like, let's just call it for what it is. That's why you got hired. Like, if Jace Lavalette and Gavin Grahovic and all them, if they weren't going to bat for you, and let's call it for what it is too, if they weren't threatening of transferring, then you wouldn't have hired him. I fully believe that. So who knows? 9 more SEC series. Michael Early might prove to be what we're talking about, just crazy talk, and they turn it around. But, man, this is not a small sample. And I just wonder, man, I mean, they're facing more adversity. The adversity continues to pile up. Is Michael Early the guy this locker room can turn to and, like, he's going to be the leader? He's going to be the captain amongst rough waters, if you will. Is he that guy? If he's not, that's a problem. Like, if he's not, that's a problem, period. So it's going to be interesting, no doubt, man. But I'm telling you, if they miss the postseason, I would not be – I would expect, actually, A&M to fire him. The money they've invested in this roster, you're telling me it misses the postseason? I mean – because the roster's not going to get any better. Like, this is going to be probably the best roster he has at A&M.
You will get Gavin Grahovic next year back.
But I'm just like the collection. Like,
yeah,
dude, Jace Lavallette's a generational talent. Like, I mean, I don't know. A lot of tough questions to answer for them throughout the season. We could spend the entire show talking about A&M and their struggles. Harrison, let's go talk about a team that didn't struggle this weekend. How about the Arkansas Razorbacks? They go into Swayze. I feel like this series was kind of under the radar because we had some kind of off-the-wall start times for this. Like, I think Friday the game was like 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it was super early on Friday.
Yeah, it was super early. Harrison, Arkansas takes 2 of 3. Really gutsy series win for the Hogs. I thought a weekend in which I've still got questions with the pitching, the thing we thought was going to be the strength. The offense is what comes alive. So you can look at it one of 2 ways. I mean, obviously, it's a successful weekend. You go into Oxford, you win the series. You're a little bit nervous about the pitching, but how about the hitting? That was our big question coming in. And the bats come alive, and you're able to take a big series on the road.
What's crazy is that we're sitting here on a Monday recapping an SEC series, let alone an opening weekend for Arkansas, and saying the hitting won Arkansas the series
against the pitching staff that's been pretty damn solid. I mean, this isn't against nobody.
A really solid pitching staff. Yeah. That was, I think, the most unexpected statement, I think, of Arkansas so far, maybe last year and this year combined. But, I mean, to do it after bouncing back in game 1 and how they got blown up in game 1. I mean, Zachary, you move him to the Friday night role or, game 1 role, per se, and he goes 3 innings, gives up 10 hits, 7 runs. 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. It wasn't the walks. I don't think he commanded the zone well. I thought that, there was a lot of really good, really quality ABs from Ole Miss. I mean, every leadoff, Ole Miss had a leadoff hitter get on almost every single inning, I think. And then every starter for Ole Miss got a hit. And then you combine that with Hunter Elliott being dialed and landing all 3-4 of his pitches. I mean, it's like good luck, basically. Arkansas's lineup, they had 14 strikeouts themselves. I mean, if you're struggling pitching wise and the hitting doesn't pick it up, you're not going to win. So I just thought it was a complete opposite of what we thought we were going to see from Arkansas in game 1, especially on both sides of the ball. And it was interesting because, then you have Gabe Gakel who struggled, recently in the talent that he is. You have him in Saturday. You have a lot of praise for him and a lot of, hey, like this is one of our guys, like our pitching.
Preseason All-American across the board. He was a
Preseason All-American,
consensus
exactly.
preseason All-American. Yeah.
And, he moved to the game 2 role, and he goes a short outing, but like an efficient outing, I guess you could say, like a solid outing. 4 innings, 2 earned, 1 hit. He had 3 walks, but he had 8 Ks, and then the bullpen comes behind him and helps out and does their job. And you're facing Riley Maddox, another really good arm, right? And you take care of business. I mean, you make a huge comeback win bounce back win from game 1 to game 2. You lose 10-6, and you go and flip the script, and you win 12-3, Chris. I mean, I thought that said a lot for the pedigree of Arkansas this season, and what they are. And it felt like everyone got on base. I think except Brent Iredale didn't get on base, a hit of the starters, and maybe Ryder Heflick. But, I mean, talk about bouncing back, Chris. I think that says a lot for the do that on the road in Swayze, like another hostile environment. And you outlast Riley Maddox, who doesn't have a great outing. But I was really impressed with that. And, just put the nail in the coffin in the 9th inning with 3. I mean, I was really impressed with that. 15 hits. Talk about bouncing back and, doing that. And then game 3, you have a rubber match on the road, and it's a slugfest because both bullpens, I mean, Mason Nichols and Walker Hooks, the 2 guys for Ole Miss that I said are the kind of their best relievers, and I've been really impressed with. You pitch both of them, and both of them really struggle against this Arkansas lineup, which has just been unbelievably good, led by the Aloy brothers, who have been top of the country all season hitting wise. And you have Landon Beetle Cheese, who just struggles, and you go straight bullpen game. I mean, Will McIntyre, what feels like an 8th-year guy there, who's just a core staple of their program, and Christian Fouch, he only goes 1 out. And it's just next man up, and they step up, and they won a slugfest on a Sunday game. I mean,
and that's a game Ole Miss went up 9-8 late. Bats come alive, you win 12-9. So.
Yeah, you give up 3 in the 7th, and you're like, crap. Like, geez, like, what do we do? And they score 1 in the 8th, and it's like, down, we're in a huge hole. And they go put 4 in the 9th inning. Like, I mean, pat on the back. I mean, a lot of props for Arkansas doing that, coming back like they did after game 1, and then in a rubber match in game 3 at the end, on the road in the SEC at a hostile environment like Swayze Field. I was really impressed with that. Really impressed, Chris.
Yeah, Harrison, we talked about it a lot in the preseason. I'll echo it. If Arkansas is swinging the bats like this all season, I feel confident the pitching is going to come around. Guys like Gabe Gackle, Root, like you mentioned, like they're going to pitch to their abilities.
Yeah, and that was Root's first bad, like not great start. Like all of his starts been really great.
Yeah. I mean, if they're swinging the sticks like that, again, the Aloy brothers have been just a blast to watch. Brent Iredale, Brent Iredale's been a ton of fun. If they're swinging the sticks like that, Arkansas is going to be a real problem. I mean, a real problem. For Ole Miss, tough. I mean, you lose at home, man. I mean, at Swayze, especially after winning game 1, and you had a chance. Yeah. I mean, again, game 3 was in your clutches, and you gotta clutch up.
Even in game 2, they were up 2-1 after the first inning, and then that 8 spot in the 5th they gave up, just brutal, and just that's just what those. And it's the same thing that Tennessee had in the 7th inning. It's just those innings that just get out of control and out of hand can just flip an entire game and even possibly a series.
Yeah, give Arkansas credit again. If they're swinging the bats that way, going to be really, really dangerous.
Yeah, I was also really impressed with Hayden Federico, the freshman from Ole Miss. I mean, I thought he played really well. He's been playing well all year. And, he had a monster home run. I think it was off Zach Root. I think it was the first pitch he saw, first pitch fastball, just unloaded on it. I mean, he's been a freshman sensation for Ole Miss. I mean, Judd Udemark, obviously a staple in that lineup. There's a lot of really good pieces at Ole Miss, and a lot to be excited about this season. It's just a tough loss at home to open up SEC play.
Yeah, no doubt. Harrison, let's go to Starkville, Mississippi. We mentioned sweeps being kind of the theme of the weekend. This was another one. The Texas Longhorns made a statement, starting life in the SEC, 3-0. Again, they sweep a Mississippi State team at the Dude. It's not easy to do. I want to give a shout out. Our guy Jake McKeever made waves on Saturday morning from something we posted. But I thought he made a good point. Like, Texas is kind of everything that A&M is not right now. And I don't mean to bring A&M in this conversation, but just from the standpoint, like, everything we thought they would be is what Texas is. They're finding ways to win games late. Their bullpen is pitching really well. A guy like Dylan Volantis, we talked about him on Friday Night Spikes. He's been fantastic as a freshman. Give Texas credit, Harrison. This was a really, really impressive weekend. You posted the clip. Max Ballou hits the big home run. on the hanging breaking ball. I loved what I saw from Texas. I think Mississippi State on the side of the Bulldogs, you got some tough questions to answer. They got to find some offensive pop, but man, give credit to Texas, man. This is a Longhorns team. Off to there, I believe this is still their best start in program history as well since 2005.
Yep.
So,
They won
17? They've won 17 in a row, I believe. So
yeah, and their one loss is opening, game one.
Opening night at Louisville. Yeah.
In a neutral site, a really good Louisville team in extra innings. They lost by one. I think it was 4-3. I mean, they've been in the mix since the jump. Obviously the preseason just hype around them too. And it's like, what's going to be Coach Lawson's first year at Texas, new staff, half a new roster, kind of give or take. Can the pieces work? Can everything fit in? Can the bullpen?
How about the arm farm, Harrison? How about the arm? I'm gonna throw you the alley-oop. I know you love talking the arm farm, man.
I mean,
Max Wiener is a magician with pitchers.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's the best pitching coach in the SEC right now, if not top two, I think. But, I mean, just what he's been able to do and implement it, and just the philosophy he has that implements so fast and effective has been great to see. And I think it's even more impressive because I don't think Texas is as deep in the bullpen as people think. Because you have Andre Duplantier II, you have Dylan Volantis, and then after that, it's kind of like, who's going to step up? You have Ruger Riojas, who's pitched really well from the bullpen too, and Max Grubbs. But I know that's 4 or 5 guys, but that's not as deep as people think. Mm-hmm. And you can't, especially if they want to use Dylan Volantis on a Sunday roll at the start. They've done both. He got the save game 1 and game 2. I mean, what he's been able to do is just, I think, in a versatility of roles is just unbelievably impressive for how young he is. I think he's a freshman too. Just absolutely insane. So really impressed with that for sure. I think, Jared Spencer's been everything that we've kind of expected him to be and seen from him, and yeah, he gave up 5 earned and, just over 5 innings on Friday, but dominated the zone, strikeout to walk ratio 7-1, obviously. And, you had Duplantier and Volantis. Duplantier give up 2 runs, but gives them extension in the game, keeps them in it. And then you bring in Volantis to close it out. And, the lineup obviously takes care of business. I mean, it was great to see. And, Jalen Flores had that insanely great play in the hold at the end to come back. I was really impressed with that. I mean, a long throw from him. Just the defense played really well overall. I think there was, I think one error an error in each of game 2 and game 3. But no, I thought Mississippi State though overall played well too. I just think they got outplayed. And it's crazy to say that, hated to see you get outplayed at home at the dude against a team that's never played in the SEC before, let alone how good Texas is. But I mean, Ace Reese, clutch. I mean, he was clutch in several occasions. He had a 0-2 backside 2 RBI double in the 9th with 2 outs.
He is their offensive leader, no doubt. He is their offensive. Yeah, love his game. He is their offensive leader.
They got Luke Harrison out of there in 4 innings, putting 2 on him, and then the bullpen they go to Ruger Riojas and Dylan Volantis again, and Volantis shuts it down. Ruger does his job, but you have a spot start Ben Davis, I think, for Stone Simmons, who is still out. He struggled, and it's I'm like, this is gonna be tough if they have to use a lot of bullpen here. And you bring in Nate Williams, who hasn't done a ton of innings, but he has, I think, one of the best coming in. Who's one of the best relievers in the SEC. He had a 15-1 strikeout to walk ratio and a 0 ERA. And he's 94 with the fastball with an absolute 12-6 dagger of a hammer curveball, upper 70s. That, like I said, I tweeted out, Max Blue absolutely deposits out of here for a home run. His, I think, 3rd of the season. I mean, that was a very impressive piece of hitting. He's behind in the count and does that. I mean, State left the bases loaded in the first as well. They got 1 in on a hit by a pitch in game 2. And then Texas, obviously, more clutch hitting, back-to-back 2-out doubles in the second from Easton Winfield and Kimber Schleusler. I mean, it's just, that's what it is. It's just timely hitting and having your starters go length in all of them as much as you can. Obviously, I think that's, an obvious statement to make, but then you don't have to use all your bullets in game 1 or game 2, and you save some for game 3. So it's not much of a bullpen game, but I mean, to do that, to go on the road, and then you have Jason Flores and Max Grubbs still for game 3. I mean, you got Max Grubbs, who I think is one of the best, relievers in SEC as well. And it's not like Mississippi State has slouches either. I mean, you have Carson Ligon, who I think is a very quality starter, especially for a Sunday guy. And I mean, it was just, he commanded the zone, I think, really well. And the curveball was deep and deadly, but just you tag him, get him out of there before the 4th or before the end of the 4th, and gets the bullpen and just go do damage that way. And Ryan Galvin, I mean, he had a great weekend too, 2 for 3 home run, and it was on a 1-2 really good breaking ball down a way that I still don't understand how he hit out. So it's just the pieces for Texas, I think, overall, to go in win your first SEC series in program history with a highly talented roster and coaching staff that's been able to make everything click from the jump. To do that on the road against a very, very solid Mississippi State club. Don't get that wrong. I think they're a very solid, strong Mississippi State baseball club this year. In the best college baseball environment in the country, at the Dude. Hostile environment, great hospitality, but hostile environment, obviously, to play in. To do that, to open SEC play, and Texas came in and said, we're here to win, not only in the SEC, but for the SEC title and to win, go to Omaha and win it all. Best start in program history since 2005 when they won it all last time. I mean, and I know Texas is thirsty for getting back to Omaha and finishing the job, and they had the talent and the coaching staff and the pieces that are all performing at a high level to do so this year, Chris.
Yeah, I think the thing that impressed me most about Texas, Harrison, to your point, the way they clutched up in these games, some really close ball games. I mean, really close games.
They held their neck.
Yeah, they clutched up is what you got to do. You mentioned timely hitting. It's just not just about hitting. It's about timely hitting, making a big pitch, making a big defensive play. Yeah.
And State had a chance to win. They put 2 up in the 9th, and they lose 8-7. And I thought they were going to come back and win that game after they scored 2. I mean, but to hunker down and close it out, I mean, I was really impressed with Dylan Vlancis to come do that at the end. Give it 1 hit and just finish the job. Like, as a freshman on the road, I mean, I don't think you give enough props to that.
Stones. That's absolute stones. I also, again, Harrison, just have to mention, I don't know what – I mentioned this last football season. I don't know what gods or what sacrifices Texas made or what gods they prayed to, but for Texas to get to the SEC or the college football playoff, year 1 of the SEC, on the gridiron, you make the NCAA tournament in basketball. Now you sweep your opening series, and then you look at what's happening to the other team in the state that we talked about earlier. Texas fans, I don't know what y'all did or who y'all prayed to, but my goodness, it worked. Whatever voodoo doll y'all are using, it worked. So good for you. Mississippi State, Harrison, to your point, they were an Omaha pick for me in the preseason. I'm not totally selling my stock yet, but
I don't think they're not as bad as people think they are.
The Lamonis,
the talent's there.
The Chris Lamonis chatter from the locals, not from me, from the locals, has begun, I fear. So,
really,
of course it has. Yes, listen, they're as passionate as any. They don't receive getting swept at home to open conference play very well, as you would expect.
Well, yeah, especially I think that the pedigree of the program is now after you win a national championship in the SEC. It's like, we expect to dominate, and go back to Omaha. It's like that's just not really realistic unless you're obviously Kevin O'Sullivan at Florida.
You got to win close ball games. I mean, that's just.
Yeah,
you got to win close ball.
It comes down to being who's more clutch.
Yeah, and you got to give all the credit for Texas for them doing that on the road, clutching up on the road. That really was what impressed me the most. I think it takes something special within a team to do that.
Yeah, the hitting is not bad. They just you're into a really good pitching staff with a lot of good guys. The bullpen they were to use, and the way that the series was, I think it was a doubleheader Sunday, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
So you get guys a day of rest. That's why they
pair of
guys
7-inning games. Yeah, pair of 7 innings.
And that helps too. It's like you have less time to do it. But when you got guys and they have in the lineup like Noah Sullivan and Nolan Stevens and Aaron Downs, I mean, they're all batting over 340. And Noah Sullivan batting over 400. Like, it's there. And Ace Reese is, I don't want to say struggling, but compared to them, he's batting 320. Bryce Chance just under 300. Like, the talent's there. Dylan Cupp, really talented kid that came in that they recruited. One of the, I think, biggest talented recruits they've had in a while. And Hunter Hines is, bottom of the qualifying barrel of the lineup, and he's batting over 250.
Yeah.
Like, it's just putting the piece together and having those clutch ABs and shutdown innings or, hits with 2 outs or 2 strikes. And Texas had a lot more of those.
Yeah. Texas clutched up, no doubt. Haberson, let's go to the Plains. Auburn kind of, can I say quietly made a statement a little bit? They take down Vandy, best 2 out of 3, take 2 of the 3 games, win the Sunday rubber match. You and I talked on Friday night, Harrison, along with our guy, Jake McKeever. Sam Dutton is an absolute dude. He shoves in game 1. This was actually a really fun series, some thrilling games.
Especially game 3.
Game 3 was awesome. I think there's a number of ways we can go here. First, let's give the credit to Auburn. I think this is a team that, again, for whatever reason, and we had one of our loyal listeners call us out Friday night, and it's fair. Listen, we're not talking about Auburn, or we haven't talked about them quite as much as maybe we should. But let's stop and give them their props here. This is a big time way to kick off SEC play. You're at home in front of a revamped Plainsman Park, great crowds all weekend, and Auburn gets the job done over a top 20 Vandy team, a Vandy team still in the top 25. Hit around some pretty darn good pitchers over the weekend too. So I'm impressed with Auburn, man. I mean, this is one I think that people probably still aren't paying enough attention to. This Auburn club is really, really dangerous.
Yeah, I think it's a different style of play too. Like they're not just, hitting home runs and doubles all the time. They're hitting a lot of, you know, two strike counts, using the backside of the field, 2-out hitting. You moving a guy over and then just timely hitting and getting the guy in, whether it's, a single in the outfield or a single through the hole or, a sac fly. They're just doing it that way. And I don't want to say it's small ball, but it's smaller ball than what the SEC and college baseball has turned into, especially when you have programs like Tennessee and Florida. You can just launch baseballs out almost as they please. I mean, I know you've watched Florida BP. They can do that, obviously, but I just don't think that Auburn's going to be that type of team that does it this year, but they just find a way to win. And when you have guys like Andreas Alvarez come in and slam the door out of the bullpen, 4 innings, 1 hit, no runs, and, no walks, 2 strikeouts, but like just come in and be a guy like that on a Sunday. I mean, in a rubber match, I mean, in a clutch, you get a clutch 8th inning, you get a grand slam from the other Blue in the SEC, and he has an unbelievable game. I mean, it's just not an overwhelmingly dominant team, but just a gritty, tough Auburn team that's going to be in every series, I think, and give teams a tough time. Like, obviously, I don't think they're the Kentucky from last year, but just kind of scrappy in how they play. They have really good base running, very good defense, and I think that's just what Auburn's going to be this year. And it's going to give them a chance to be in every series and, compete for the upper half of the SEC.
Harrison, when it comes to Vandy, do you have concerns about the trajectory under Tim Corbin? I mean, listen, Corb's is a legend of the college game. He's a legend of the game of baseball. What he's done at Vanderbilt. I know. You know why I ask you this, Harrison? I saw some Vandy baseball fans this weekend talking about that. They're kind of concerned with the trajectory of the program, where are they, what are they, and where are they going under Tim Corbin? Because it's not the dominant Vandy we're used to. It's not.
Yeah, but Vanderbilt's a similar type of team. They're not going to, slug their way in to win series. I mean, they're very similar to what I just said about Auburn. Like, historically, they've been, but I think more dominant on the pitching side. We've seen, Vanderbilt's been a pitching factory the past, 10 years. It feels like, kind of overall, not so much the past, 2 years really. And, you have Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, but they faced a really good arm in Sam Dutton, who absolutely probably, I think, had one of his best outings, and the bullpen behind them, just things clicked pitching wise for Auburn. But I don't think you can take away from Vanderbilt because of just the history and what Tim Corbin is and how strong and elite of a program he's made at a school like Vanderbilt. I mean, because first off, it's a very hard school to get into, let alone stay into. But I just think it's different. It's a different style of game, different, the game, the landscape of college baseball has changed. College sports has changed with NIL, transfer portal. It's making things a lot different than what Alabama football wanted to be. I think I relate it kind of similar to Nick Saban in Alabama. I mean, you talk about Vanderbilt, they have won 2 national championships under Tim Corbin in the past 10 years. They've lost in 2 finals as well. So they're one of the most prestigious programs in college baseball the past 10 years, you could easily say. I'd argue top 5 for sure. And just a different, I mean, Tim Corbin's an old school style, hard-nosed, just really good recruiter, and that's kind of the style as Alabama football. And I'm not going to compare it too much to Alabama football, which is Nick Saban being the GOAT that he is, but it just reminds me so much of that. It's a different style of game with the portal, NIL, recruiting your own players. And then it's just how much deeper the SEC is. I don't think you take anything away from Tim Corbin, but this could be a more pivotal year, I think, than others, and I think it probably is. But as long as you don't fall off a cliff, I don't think I see Vanderbilt, doing that. It's just the depth of the SEC and, the programs that have risen of the SEC, let alone the depth. It feels like, over half the league is, top 6, top 17 in the league, especially on any given weekend. So I don't think you can take anything away from Tim Corbin. It's just a lot of the game changing and him having to adapt and, do things a little bit differently and evolve.
Harrison, I think you make some great points, and I do love the Nick Saban comparison, if you will, kind of the way the game changed and what happened to them. I do think you posed a great question. can Vanderbilt still be what they were pre-portal NIL? And if not, like, how are Vanderbilt fans going to receive that and accept that? Because the game is different.
Think about it
Think
about it as, are they going to invest in baseball going forward in the future? Talk about NIL and, paying for players because it's pay to play now, Chris. And, first off, you have to, commit to do that and have the funds to do that. Second off, it's got to work. And at A&M, obviously, not to, throw shade on anyone, but it's just their struggles right now. And as much as they've invested financially into, players in the program, is Vanderbilt willing to do that? I mean, there's been a lot of focus on Vanderbilt football, I think, coming into this past season, but also after this past season. Renovations there. It's just, do they want to invest in baseball like other SEC schools? I'd say over half the other SEC schools are doing. It's an arms race. And are they going to keep up? Do they want to keep up? And that goes a lot to what the donors want to do and how much they support the program and what they want the future to look like.
Last thing, Harrison, we'll move on. The state of Alabama, it's a baseball state. So listen, I know, maybe that's a little bold. I know March Madness is getting underway, and we got Auburn as the number 1 overall national seed, and Bama's a 2 seed. But I'm just saying, you better be paying attention to baseball. I'm just saying, you better be paying attention to what's going down in the diamond in the state of Alabama.
Agreed.
That's all I'm saying.
Agreed.
So, Harrison, let's go. This will be fun to discuss. Athens, Georgia. The Georgia Bulldogs take 2 of 3 against Kentucky. Okay, that's the headline. That's the high-level view of this. Harrison, Georgia just keeps on. It is like lather, rinse, repeat.
It's clockwork, it feels like.
Get down 2 or 3 nothing in the first inning, go win a slugfest. Harrison, the stat that I saw this morning that I sent over to you guys, via our friends over at 11.7. Shout out to them. They had it on their social media. Georgia has given up 3 or more runs in the first 4 innings in 15 of 23 games this season. I mean, but they keep winning. They won 2 or 3.
I'm surprised, Georgia, but it sounds right from everything I've watched from them.
Here's the thing. Georgia, I'll say this. Congrats to the Dogs. We don't have any hate to the Dogs. The reality is this, though. If you keep messing around in that way, you are going to find out. The SEC will eat you alive if you can't get better starting pitching. But the fact of the matter is this, Harrison, they win this weekend, take 2 out of 3 against a Kentucky team that I thought showed us something. Very scrappy. But Georgia comes out a winner yet again.
Yeah, I think I was impressed with I say impressed, with a grain of salt with Georgia doing this against an SEC, team finally, because we know it felt like it was going to happen, figuring this out and going through this whole, song and dance again. But to do it against a guy on a Friday like Nick McKay, who's been a top 10 pitcher in the league statistically, he's not a big name. He's not one that the conference really knows about, but to knock him out just after 2 innings and put 3 runs on him and only 1 hit. I mean, he walked 5 guys and just taking advantage of those walks. I mean, they walked 11 guys. They walked 11 Georgia batters. It was as much of a barrel as they put on the baseball consistently. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster for any team facing Georgia. But then you get in a hole with Charlie Goldstein and Justin Bird, and it's like, here we go again. I mean, I text you death taxes in Georgia, falling behind, start the game. I mean, but it was like, all right, well, which inning are they going to do it? And it was like, do they just chip away? And that's what they did. You put 1 in the 3rd and 4th, 2 in the 5th, 3 in the 6th, 3 in the 7th. And it's just like, it doesn't even make sense. I don't think it really doesn't, but you got to, give credit to the end of the bullpen. I think honestly, after Colton Smith, he pitched really well. I mean, he had a couple walks, but then you have DJ Tyler and Zach Harris, come in and close it out and only give up 1 hit between the 3 of them and no runs. So you have to give props to Georgia's bullpen yet again, because they saved Georgia. And then, Saturday, it's the same thing. It's like, here we go again. We're down 6-2, 7-2, or it was 8-2, I think, or something like that. And it's just chip away. And that's what's going to happen. That Saturday game is what's going to happen if Georgia does that against a Tennessee, an Alabama, a Florida, a Texas. I mean, in Oklahoma, maybe. I mean, an LSU. They chipped away and they just ran out of time. You put 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 7th, 2 in the 8th. You have 10 hits, but you give up 13 and you give up just big spots, and they weren't able to climb out this time. And that's what I think Georgia fans are starting to realize, like, hey, we can't do this every game. It puts too much stress and too many innings on the bullpen, which has already thrown over 70 innings non-conference. And I think the starting pitchers have to do like 24. I mean, and you don't have a guy until Zach Brown who goes more than one inning. Zach goes 3 2/3, and he pitched phenomenally. I'm more concerned, I think, with Alton Davis and the lack of length you get out of him and the lack of, high quality pitching. He gives up 4 hits, 4 earned. I mean, I just was really big on him and the talent he brings and the arsenal he has, the arm slot. It's super unique, and he hasn't been, excelling like I honestly thought he would, especially under a pitching coach like Wes Johnson, who's worked with Paul Skeens and phenomenal other pitchers and is one of the best pitching coaches in the SEC as well. And he's a head coach. Chris, like we say, Michael Early having to worry about everything now on his plate other than just hitting. Wes Johnson having to worry about everything on his plate now other than just pitching. I think it's taken away maybe a little bit from the starting pitching because you can just focus and dial on that. But yes, you have guys coming back from injury, and you have just guys that can't give you length, and then the guys that don't give you length because they don't pitch well. And then you see it in game 3 again, Chris. It's like, here we go again. We're down 3. We're in a 3 spot before we even hit. I mean, how much longer is this going to last? I mean, yes, they slugged their way out of it with a 7 spot in the 3rd and a 5 spot in the 6th to put up, 17 runs. And I mean, what's funny, Chris, is Georgia football put up less points than Georgia baseball against Kentucky in game 3 alone. Georgia baseball played better.
That's a heck of a stat. That's a heck of a stat.
17-10. It was a football score. It was 17-10. And it's like Kentucky's a very scrappy, played clean, solid defense, the little things right and get them on, get them over, get them in. And, they did that. And that was the kind of style they had this weekend, I feel like. And you have guys like Slate Alford, who overall is a good series, Robbie Burnett and Rylan Zembrowski, who's, I think, been one of the most impactful guys in the SEC, let alone Georgia for sure in the lineup. And, having Trey Phelps behind him, you don't have any room to, walk him or whatnot. And Rylan's led Georgia's offense. I think he's the centerpiece of Georgia's offense right now. And that's hard to say because of how deep they are and how the run production's been so spread out through the entire, lineup. But Sunday's just a bullpen game for Kentucky, even more so than Georgia. And Georgia just, Leighton Finley struggles. He was 4 in just over an inning. And you're like, well, crap. And then Brian Craig comes in and this guy throws 100. He gives you over 3 innings, almost 4 innings, but he doesn't walk anyone. He walks one guy, but then he gives up 4 runs just on a lot of fastballs that get hit. And then Brian Zeldin comes in. It's like, crap. When 7 Ks, he was either strikeout walk or, a hit that gave him up a run. And it's just high stress baseball to watch. I can't imagine Georgia fans that, are passionate baseball fans that are just have a heart rate below 140 watching this game or watching, Georgia play baseball right now. And at the end of the day, Chris, they're going to say, yeah, we won the series, though. We won the game. It's like, all right, well, I mean, I wouldn't be thrilled with that. I mean, yeah, you're winning. And, Wes Johnson says, winning this league, winning a series is anything but easy to do. And it's very important, obviously. But the way you win, I think, has to speak more volumes. Like the way Tennessee wins, the way they swept Florida and the talent that Florida is. I mean, Georgia just isn't going to do this around the SEC the entire season. And it's like, well, what point, when's the wall they run into? Or when does the pitching catch up starting-wise? So we'll see, and time will tell. But Georgia sneaks out. I don't want to say sneaks out because it was just a loud weekend runs-wise and bad for anyone's ERA. So no pitcher's BP for any team, that's for sure. But Georgia gets the series win. And I said they would. I thought they'd lose game 1 and win game 2 and 3, but a little bit different.
The good news is your lineup is maybe even better than last year. Even without
I think
Charlie
it's better
Condon.
than last year.
Yeah. The good news is your lineup is arguably better than last year, even without Charlie Condon. The bad news is your pitching stinks. If the pitching ever comes around, it'll be like Happy Gilmore learning how to putt. You'll be unstoppable. But for the time being, I think you bring up a great point, Harrison. Like, it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when the pitching woes catch up to you and you're not able to outslug your way to a series win. It is going to cost you at some point. That is the concern with Georgia. Again, if they ever get the pitching figured out, they'll be in a great spot. 20 games in, there just hasn't been any signs that that's going to happen. So that's their big question.
Yeah, and I mean, to answer one of your question going into the series, it's like, who do we learn more about, Georgia or Kentucky? I'd honestly say Kentucky.
Yeah, I think Kentucky's going to be more of a headache than we probably gave them credit for.
Yeah, and that they can win high-scoring games. I mean, they can hit home runs. They can, play clean defense. They can kind of do it all at a little bit above average level. And I think we learned more about them because we knew who Georgia was. It's like, well, let's see in the SEC, but it's like, well, they're playing, Kentucky. They're not playing Texas, LSU, Tennessee, or Florida to start. But now Georgia's going to get a real test, and we're going to see a lot of true colors of them and what that looks like against Florida on the road. So against a really good pitching staff.
Yeah, there will be nowhere to run, nowhere to hide in Gainesville.
And you want to talk about slugfest? Florida will be happy to play the slugfest.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, who knows, Harrison? Maybe we're on the path to seeing the first time ever a team ranked 16th in a conference in ERA makes it to Omaha. Never know. Who knows? Maybe it happens. I doubt it, but maybe.
No.
Harrison, let's go to Baton Rouge. We'll kind of run through this one. The LSU Tigers take care of their business against Mizzou. They sweep. It wasn't as comfortable as we thought it might be. I thought Mizzou showed some fight in this one and at least gave me some confidence here, Harrison. They're going to win a few SEC games, but LSU handling their business as expected. Again, my thoughts on LSU don't really change, Harrison, but I give credit to Carrick Jackson Company. My God, they made LSU fans very uncomfortable. A couple one-run games, close games, much closer than I expected, but LSU handles business, and they dropped to number 2 in the polls. I don't think they're very thrilled about that, but I think a lot of them understand just what Tennessee's been doing. Any thoughts on this one? Again, I think the bigger takeaway is the fact Mizzou even made this a competitive weekend at the box.
Yeah, honestly, I think we learned more about Missouri than we learned more about LSU. I think just the fight and grit that they had. I mean, they had a chance to win game 2. They lost 7-6, and that's after your starter Will Libbert goes under 4 innings and gives up 6 runs on 2 walks and no strikeouts, 4 hits. I mean, Anthony Ianson and Kane Anderson do exactly what you expected them to do. I mean, go length and strikeout. Just it feels like a monstrous amount of numbers. Obviously, not for Ianson. He had 5 compared to I think he had 13 or 12 in his previous outing. But then you get guys other opportunities, and I thought Missouri was just scrappy enough to hang around. I mean, obviously the scores kind of blew themselves out. You had the big inning in the 5th in game 1 for LSU, and then late Missouri gets some fight and puts up 3 in the last couple innings. But LSU is like, now we're done with that. We'll put up 3 more in the bottom of the 8th. But you have guys that are able to do it. The lineup's deep at LSU. We talk about that all the time, and just we talk about the freshmen off the bench and just the depth they have. I mean, Jake Brown came in and goes 2 for 2 with 4 RBIs in game 1. I mean, that was really impressive to see that. And Braswell, got to see him play again.
Brazzy's starting to heat up a little bit. Talking to folks down there,
he's starting to really
see it. Yeah.
So,
by the way, funny enough, Harrison, talking to them last year, I don't know if you recall this. Apparently, it was kind of same thing. He was hitting 150, 175 in non-con, and then got to SEC play. And I don't know what it is with him, but this is about the time of the year Michael Braswell starts to heat up. So it's another piece.
Yeah, Luis Hernandez looked really good too, catcher. I thought he played well overall. He goes 0 for 4 on Saturday, but I thought I was impressed with, the at-bats he had. 2 hits on game 3 and several in game 1 and a couple RBIs. So I liked it. I think we didn't really learn anything about LSU, except that I don't think they're the number 1 team in the nation. Because there's no shot that anyone here can convince me that Tennessee's hanging around with Missouri for 1, let alone a couple games, giving up that many runs to them.
Not with the way they're playing right now. No.
No, so
I don't think.
But you do take care of business. No disrespect to LSU, you take care of business. You get guys, some guys in the bullpen to pitch. You get William Schmidt, who got touched up a little bit actually, which is a little surprising. Just him being as good as he is, and just what Jay Johnson loves about him. He said he's not pitching any midweeks anymore. Sorry. And then Kassan Evans, he goes out and slams the door shut. So you got to see a lot of different things from LSU, but just you learn more about Missouri kind of being that just annoying pest in the SEC that just you're not going to take too much, you're not gonna be so high on them at all, because it's like, we should take 2 or 3. We should take minimum 2 or 3. We should sweep the series, right? But they're like, all right, this team is just so annoying. I think that's just kind of the vibe.
Yeah, I Kassan Evans, you mentioned that name, by the way. Really, really impressed with him. I mean, I don't think LSU's sweating it too much, being number 2 instead of number 1. I mean, there's a lot of pressure with being the number 1 team, target on the back. I've seen some of their fans say, hey, let them have it, whatever. But I will say, I'll admit, Harrison, I was surprised how competitive Mizzou kept that thing, which just goes to show
they were up in the first game, I think. And I
know 2-0. They 2-0, and we're like, oh my goodness. So anyways, LSU, the bottom line is this: sweep's a sweep. You get a sweep, take care of your business. Hey, the series of the weekend, Harrison, looking ahead, LSU going to Dish Falk to take on the Texas Longhorns. That is going to be an electric factory this week.
You're going to learn a lot about both clubs next week.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait to watch that one. Harrison, final one. The Oklahoma Sooners went on the road to Columbia, South Carolina. This series was a thriller, by the way. It comes down to a Game 3 rubber match. Oklahoma scores a run in the top of the 10th inning, and they close the door, take 2 out of 3. This is another one, Harrison, where, again, after getting swept by Clemson, I had serious doubts about South Carolina. I thought they were really scrappy. I know their fan base believes they maybe should have won the series. A defensive miscue in the top of the 9th is what allowed Oklahoma to tie the game. So they're really scrappy. They're going to be a tough out. I might even feel a little bit better about South Carolina being potentially, a team that I think is going to fight for the postseason this year. Jake McCoy is a dude on Saturdays. He's fantastic. Kyson Witherspoon on the bump for OU. No surprise. He's one of the SEC's best. It's going to be hard to beat him on a Friday night. But again, we talked about Texas, their first SEC series ever. Gritty, gutsy, clutching up. Oklahoma doing the same thing, man. It's a good start to SEC play when you win your first SEC series. OU does that.
Yeah, and obviously Kyson Witherspoon doesn't have his best outing.
Yeah.
And he gives up a couple runs. Obviously, they were all late in the end of his outing, and it was when the next guy came in and gave up, some hits with, I think James came up and gave a couple of hits up, and a couple of Witherspoon's runs that ended up, just over 5, 6 hits, 3 earned, 7 Ks, 1 walk. But I think it was really impressive. Again, another outing, but to do it in the SEC. And, Brandon Stone, who is struggling, he got put in the Friday role, which we were surprised to see for South Carolina. Maybe they were pitching
4 spot
off
in the first inning. 4 spot in the first inning.
Yeah, gives up 5 total. But he settled down after that for sure, especially not, being a strikeout guy.
Harrison, did you see the quote from Paul Maneri talking about he wasn't able to get all of his warm up in, didn't throw any breaking balls in warm up, and he felt like that's why he came out of the gate slow. I saw that quote and I was like, I don't think I've ever seen.
No way.
It's what he said. It's what Maneri said. I was like, but it's an odd quote. It was an odd quote to say the very least.
I just
very odd quote.
Even as a pitcher, let alone as a pitching coach that manages that and a head coach, I don't know. But anyways, you talk about Jake McCoy. A gritty outing. It wasn't great from the stat books. Giving up 9 hits, 4 earned, 3 walks, 6 Ks in 5 innings. But you give him a lot of, he's a competitive guy. He's not going to go up there and dominate, teams when traditionally, I think consistently, but he gives you a really good spot on a Saturday to go out and win a game. And Tyler Pitzer, who's been a starter for South Carolina sometime earlier in his career, 4 no-hit innings, no runs, 1 unearned, obviously, but 5 walks was a really weird, concerning thing. 6 Ks, but 5 walks. And to do that without giving up any earned runs was just a very unique style of pitching. Don't recommend it, obviously, but I think you could see him in either a long relief role continued or put him in a starting role, maybe. I would have started him over Brandon Stone personally, but I don't know. It was a really interesting series. And then, Cameron Johnson, who I think he threw 9 pitches on Sunday, game 3. And we just didn't know what to do with that. And Cade Crosland comes in and gives you almost 5 innings of length. He scatters 4 hits, no earned, and just South Carolina just chipping away. Dylan Eskew gives you a phenomenal start, even though he walked 4 guys in 4 innings. 1 hit, 1 earned, and you give your team a chance on a Sunday rubber match game. And then, the bullpen, you kind of be strategic with it, going with, Aiden Palmer, Parker Marlott, and, Matthew Becker, who gets hit around in his second appearance in the series. And, Brendan Sweeney, who gives you just over 2 innings, but struggles himself. And I don't know. It was a really gutsy kind of gritty series. And you give up that 1 in the 10th, you have 2 in the 9th to tie it, which is just so frustrating after you get an extra run in the 7th and 8th to kind of create some distance, a back and forth scrappy game. But to give up 2 in the 9th is just so frustrating as a team and a pitching staff that it's just part of it. And those are the least. That's when you don't want to give runs. It's just let a team crawl back in it or scratch their way back in it in the 9th, and then you lose in extras at home to lose the series. It's just the most frustrating thing because South Carolina had a chance to win this series. They really did, and I think it was more impressive that they did because of how dominant we thought Oklahoma's pitching staff was going to be throughout, and more consistent hitting. But like I said, with Kentucky and Auburn and kind of Vanderbilt too, they're all just South Carolina's a really gritty team offensively, I think, and is going to be annoying enough that they're going to be in a lot of games. And it's just, is there enough, clutch hitting from the team, from the guys in the lineup around Ethan Petrie when he either plays well or doesn't play well? Because at the end of the day, you have to have multiple guys. You can't just have 2 or 3 guys produce or the top half of the lineup produce for South Carolina. You need to have guys that can, be down in the count and just slap a ball in the right field, or just do this, get a guy over. And just, that's what the difference between winning and losing a series like this, Chris.
Yeah, Harrison, I appreciate you holding it down for a few minutes, by the way. For those that don't know, I don't know what just happened. My internet just completely bugged out on me. But no, I agree with you. I thought Paul Manera had a really interesting quote on Friday just talking about, he just essentially said, we are who we are. From a lack of power standpoint. I mean, they had 12 hits in that Friday game and 11 were singles. Now, the power started to kind of wake up a little bit. You saw, I believe it was Kennedy Jones went deep in one of those games on the weekend. But I think you make a great point, Harrison, kind of what we said about South Carolina coming in the season. It's playing out to fruition. They just, you've got Ethan Petrie. You just need more guys.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Carrion had a triple in game 1, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the only extra base hit. So, and that was
Scooby had a home run too as well in game 2. Yeah, it's just they're not going to beat you the long ball. They're going to beat, if they're going to beat you, it's going to be,
But they're going to be a scrappy team, like you said. I do agree with that.
Yeah, they're going to have to be competitive on the mound, keep yourself in games, and just have a couple extra clutch hits than the other team and, timely hitting. And it's as simplistic as that, but it's not easy.
Yeah. So Oklahoma, bottom line is this. Find a way. I mean, again, a series that I agree with you, Harrison. I heard you say South Carolina feels like they let one get away on your home field. You had it, and Who
do you think we learned more about, South Carolina or Oklahoma in this series?
Probably South Carolina a little bit, to be honest with you.
I would agree, South Carolina.
I'd probably say the Gamecocks. Agree. Yeah. Again, I think they're going to be a scrappy club. I think this is a club definitely after this weekend. I could say, you got to be able to clutch up late, but I think this is a team that's going to be knocking on the door right on the bubble of the postseason. They're going to be right there.
Yeah. I mean, props to Oklahoma. Going on the road, you win your first SEC series in program history. You do it on the road again. Both teams that Oklahoma and Texas, who have never played in the SEC before, go win on the road in the SEC. I mean, you got to give props to that. But to, South Carolina battle and, wait through Kyson Weatherspoon and just kind of bear that storm until, put some pressure on at the end of his outing. You learn more about him and what they can do against this pitching staff, and just because I think you expect, a team, obviously it didn't happen for, Texas to struggle on the road in their first SEC series, but it's not easy to do, let alone, I didn't think it would be a flawless series from Oklahoma. I think I did pick Oklahoma, but I thought it would be a rubber match on Sunday, and it was. And South Carolina showed a lot of grit, a lot of fight, and just, I think that's going to play well for them throughout the season and the SEC as a whole.
Yeah, I would agree, Harrison. Again, an electric weekend on conference opening weekend, and it's only going to continue. We got 9 more of these, Harrison. The fun's only going to get things are only going to get more intense, I should say. We will talk about preview, predict, of course, second weekend of conference play on Thursday. But again, what a first weekend it was, Harrison. 4 of the 8 series end up in sweeps, which was something
I never predict a sweep.
I don't think either one of us saw that coming, but again, certainly some statements made all across the conference as we start to figure out.
I would have predicted 1 if I had to predict.
Well, just saying. Merry sweepmas, I suppose. I don't know. Sweeps were the hot topic this weekend. Harrison, we're going to get into the midweek preview, talk about some of these midweek games, Tuesday and Wednesday action. Before we do, though, guys, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because it's always brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. This bracket season, FanDuel is letting you make the call, because right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to bet on everything from clutch shots to last-second heartbreaks and even who's cutting down the nets. If you've been waiting to join, there's no better time. There's tourney action almost every day, and FanDuel has amazing bet types like spreads, totals, game props, and so much more. Guys, they're also, by the way, I know this is a basketball promo, but they're dropping spreads for baseball games. So you want to bet on basketball, baseball, whatever it is, but certainly as March Madness gets going this week, everybody, and that includes everybody, that includes Harrison at SEC Unfiltered, is filling out a bracket this week. Myself and Dave Shoemake going to be dropping predictions, going to be dropping our best bets. Tail us, fade us, whatever you want to do, just make sure you visit FanDuel.com/SECU and get in on the college hoops action all tourney long. Must be 21 up and present in select states or 18 and up and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Harrison, let's talk about this midweek slate. We've got Tuesday and Wednesday. We got just 2 games on Wednesday.
Hey, I will say, to follow the ad read, maybe don't tail the baseball guy filling out a basketball bracket, but if Dave and Cole, if my bracket ends up being better than theirs, I'm not going to let them live it down.
I mean, Harrison, to be fair, though, I don't know that, like, knowing a lot about basketball is what makes for a good bracket. So, like, you probably will have the best bracket of everyone, if I'm being totally honest. So
I'd rather just my Field of 64 bracket be better for baseball, but we'll take it. It'll be fun. I'm not going to put too much time and investment into it because I don't want to do that. And, 8 games in, all right, well, there goes my Final Four team.
I mean, that's going to happen to all of us, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Anyways, Harrison, let's talk these midweek games. Like I said, loaded Tuesday slate. We have just 2 games on Wednesday, as expected. Heck, we got a Thursday conference game. Like I mentioned, we've got Tennessee and Alabama on Thursday. Again, we'll talk about that on Thursday. Just running through the midweek slate, Harrison, anything jump out to you? And obviously the big one, we do have ranked on ranked. These Mississippi schools, man, they love to challenge themselves with these big non-conference midweeks. Ole Miss and Southern Miss doing battle. Top 25 matchup there. Outside of that, anything stand out to you? I mean, I do think South Carolina playing College of Charleston. That game is a neutral site game in Columbia. Obviously, South Carolina taking on their old head coach in Chad Holbrook. So that's always really exciting. The fact they're willing to do this game is really cool and a lot of fun. But anything stand out to you? I mean, there's some interesting games, no doubt. Not the most intense midweek slate we've seen, but some interesting games for sure.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Ole Miss, Southern Miss at Trustman Park, the now former home
Pearl,
of Mississippi.
Mississippi. Yeah, Pearl,
Mississippi. So neutral site there. That'll be interesting to see, especially, Ole Miss being, top 15 coming off of a tough series loss at home. And Southern Miss loves playing Mississippi State and Ole Miss, that's for sure. And as good as they are, I mean, they're ranked top 25 as well. But I'd say for me, I mean, as much as I want to say ETSU at Tennessee, I'm not even going to talk about it. I'd say Jacksonville versus Florida just because of Jacksonville's a quality mid-major program in the state of Florida. Florida struggles in the midweeks. They have a little bit of just injury bug right now. But South Al at Alabama. I mean, I think that one could get really interesting. I mean, South Al is a really quality club. I know they 0-3 in the Sun Belt, but in-state, games always just kind of tick it up a notch a little bit. So that might be one to keep an eye on for sure. Definitely South Carolina, Charleston. I mean, I know it's at Segura. It's kind of a home-ish game for South Carolina. Not really, but I'd say those two, South Al, Alabama, and South Carolina, Charleston, the most exciting ones of them. And to look forward to, because maybe Alabama gets caught a little bit sleep, after a big series win on the road, series sweep against A&M, and looking ahead to Tennessee. You never know, but midweeks do matter, Chris, and we're making them happen.
Midweeks do matter. How about Tennessee, East Tennessee State, too? A pair of teams that love to hit the home run. So that one could be.
Can they do it against, the depth of Tennessee's pitching staff?
Yeah.
The guys they roll just throwing 95.
Which, again, you never know what happens in the midweek, though. I mean, we saw Tennessee last week. I think they won 4-2 in their midweek game and then do what they did over the weekend. So you never know. I mean, again, midweeks matter. You just never know what you're going to get. Dude, I look at Oklahoma and UTA, Texas. I think that's University of Texas, Arlington.
Austin.
Bro,
Arlington, yeah.
They gave Texas trouble last week. You might recall that. They gave Texas some headaches in the midweek. Texas won, obviously, but that could be maybe an interesting game. And then on Wednesday, Harrison, like I mentioned, just 2 games, Arkansas, Oral Roberts, and Florida A&M. I think both of those should be pretty, I say easy, but should. SEC should be able to handle those 2. Outside of that, man. And then,
don't sleep on Missouri. Don't sleep on Murray State, Kentucky, though.
Yeah, no, that's a good one as well. I mean, Harrison, I was going to say I have to highlight A&M and A&M Corpus Christi. I mean, it's fun. We're always posting the who should be on upset alert this week in the SEC. I think A&M at this point should be on upset alert every week. I mean, I'm sorry, but like at some point, these aren't going to be upsets anymore, which is scary to say. But certainly, again, the headliner, Harrison, you mentioned it. We mentioned it. Top 25 matchup, Southern Miss, Ole Miss. That's going to be a lot of fun there in Pearl, Mississippi. Rivalry games in the midweek. Always a good time. So that being said, Harrison, before we get out of here, let's run through a few questions. Again, guys, we really appreciate you guys, whether you tune in live, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We always appreciate it. Jeremy Scott with the first comment of the day. Roll Tide. Top 10 in baseball. What aren't they good at? We got a lot of these celebrating here on this Monday, Harrison. Jed says go Tigers. Jordan says go Dogs. We got a lot of folks in here. Thank you all so much for the love and support, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
David Speaks says A&M could lose 7 of the next 9 SEC games. Boy, they'd really be reeling at that point. Jim Dillingham, Sooner baseball. Chaos with the OU highlighted. Love that. Yeah. A lot of folks celebrating. Max says, can't wait for LSU Texas this weekend. A lot of LSU fans are making the trip to Austin. Going to be a great environment.
That'll be awesome.
Texas fans are going to find out. Texas fans are going to find out how well these SEC baseball fan bases travel. Because,
especially LSU. But I hope that Texas is as hospitable as they received from Mississippi State. Because everything I saw and heard, Mississippi State was so hospitable to Texas and just, a hostile environment, but just a hospitality was just through the roof as expected. Yeah. Great fans at Hail State.
Yeah, and I think they will. I think they will. David Speaks says Tennessee, LSU, Tennessee, Arkansas matchups will be 2 of the best 3 series of the year. I would agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, we thought A&M at Texas, though, was going to be the best one, but.
No, I think LSU, Tennessee definitely is setting up to be the series of the year in college baseball, not just the SEC.
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to throw this one in there real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Got to toss this one in there. Thanks, David Speaks. Called, 2 of 3 Georgia Tech series wins so far. Thanks for the prayers. And always fun to be on the call for college baseball. And, especially when team you're calling wins. So that's always a great benefit too. And got some good weather for sure.
Yeah, good stuff, Harrison. That was awesome. David Speaks makes a great point. Basketball and baseball league depth is insane. You could have 12 or 13 teams in the playoffs. I'm assuming you're meaning obviously the postseason. I mean, I think right now, Harrison, we could make this a weekly thing. Just talking about. I think right now, I'd probably say 13. I feel good about that. I think we'll go to the postseason. 12 for sure.
12
for
sure. Are you going to get 14 like basketball?
That might be a little aggressive.
I just think college baseball it's a different style of postseason, especially with the series and whatnot. But that'll be fun to keep up with for sure.
The one you obviously feel really good that's not going to the postseason is Mizzou. I'd probably say Kentucky would be my next one.
Then South Carolina.
Probably still South Carolina outside looking in.
Yeah.
And if it was going to be 12, if there was one more, maybe you go like Mississippi State. Maybe either State or Ole Miss. Will they
I'd
miss
say
the postseason?
Vanderbilt maybe.
Vandy, okay, yeah, you might. Yeah, Vandy, you might be right. Yeah,
I don't know,
right.
But
again, it's very really tough to project right now. We're not trying to overreact to one weekend, but
yeah. Michael Capesi talking about who's in the postseason: Tennessee, LSU, Bama, and Arkansas. Those are the 4 real contenders for the Natty. They are definitely 4. I don't think they are the 4 though. They're definitely more than that. But I mean, you got to throw. I think you have to throw Texas in there right now for sure, and Florida obviously. But I don't know. Time will tell.
All I know is this: it is going to be a busy College World Series from the SEC perspective. If people had
bleeding out the eyeballs,
if people had SEC fatigue last year with half the field being SEC, you might be in for you may not enjoy this College World Series. I'll put it that way. I mean, we might see 4. We might see more than 4 at this point. I mean, really, truly, depending on matchups.
I mean, over half the field would be insane. That's like over half the field in the Elite 8.
Yeah. Our friends over at Chinook Seeds, go Chinook Seeds. Yeah, appreciate y'all, man. Been chomping all the seeds every single day, essentially, of baseball season. So it's always a.
I've been having some cinnamon toast this weekend, so I've been enjoying that. A little subtleness to it.
Yeah, our guys over at Chinook really appreciate y'all. And again, we appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, Harrison. Let's go ahead and put a pin in it. Like I said, we could go all day, but man, really, really good stuff. An electric first weekend of conference play, and we're off and running, man. We're off and running. So 9 more weekends to go. Again, savor every moment before you go, Harrison. Savor every moment because, like I mentioned earlier in the show, the halfway point of the season, I think literally happens this weekend. So just,
wow,
it flies by, man. Just really, really savor it and enjoy every game.
Hey, saving every moment means you have to be there on time. And I was on time today, and Chinook Scenery was not.
Chinook.
Just saying.
Hey,
Just
Chinook. See,
saying.
man, being late happens to the best of us, Chinook.
A tradition unlike any other. Not this week,
Yeah,
though.
I know. Now it's on our guy Chinook for being late. Here's some really good stuff, man. Appreciate you. We're going to appreciate all you that tuned in live. Thank you so much to those listening via podcast. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. If you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Harrison Fant, I'm Chris Phillips. This is The Windup. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all on Thursday.